What's up, comic book fans and people that like to complain about Star Wars? Have you come to the right place? At least on my behalf. I am Pete, and this is Comic Books Transformed. I am sharing this time with my good friend Brian. Brian, do you like to complain about Star Wars?
Yeah, I think so.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I always give things the benefit of the doubt, but like, man, they're testing us.
Yes, we are talking about The Mandalorian, Season 3, Episode 6, which is called Guns for Hire, Chapter 22 of The Mandalorian. Now, this episode was spoiled for me. I went to, I was on Twitter before I watched it, and I just started to see clips pop up, and I looked at it and I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is real? Now, was it spoiled for you before you saw the episode?
Well, the what was spoiled was some of the cameos. Actually, you know what? I didn't even know who it was at first. I knew that they went like I had seen that they had went too far with the cameos, which I do a sentiment I do agree with. I've said it before many times in the show. That's one of my biggest problems with the show overall is that these dropping these huge celebrity cameos for these one-offs. It really bugs me for the most part. Like it really takes you out of it.
Yeah.
And just to be extra clear, like casting Katie Sackhoff is great. Casting Rosario Dawson is great. Casting Pedro Pascal is great. But casting people in these roles that are like, living in the show and all that is a big difference in these like stunt casting things. Because I'm assuming that these people just want to be in Star Wars in some capacity. And, and they happen to know Jon Favreau. I mean, that's really the only thing I can think of for why they're doing this.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Prior to, or actually after I wrote the notes for today's episode, I saw that Jack Black was interviewed. It was like a clip on TikTok or whatever, and he was like talking to an interviewer, and he started singing the song from The Mandalorian. So he like loves The Mandalorian. He was being interviewed for something else, like the Mario movie or something, and he started talking about The Mandalorian. So I think he's a fan. And then Lizzo was Baby Yoda or Grogu for Halloween last year too.
Yeah, so it's just Star Wars is a huge pop culture like monster, and people have loved it for years. It's one of those things where like it was even sort of culturally accepted if you were like a nerd, but you like Star, like even like the cool kids liked Star Wars, for a time, and it was like the cool thing to like.
Yes.
And it's just I don't know, just cut it out, man.
Cut it out, Jon Favreau.
Cut it out, Jon Favreau.
With their stunt casting. It made me wonder, though, were they trying to like get all the stunt casting out of the way? Where they're like, okay, well, Jack Black wants to be on the show. Lizzo wants to be on the show. Hey, we got Christopher Lloyd. Do we shove them all into one episode and then there's no more stunt casting for the rest of the season? Like, what? Why did they do this?
And it's funny, like, some of them, maybe do some of those like more stealth ones, like they had some people in stormtrooper costumes in the first season.
Right.
Like you didn't even notice. So they can say they're in the show. You don't notice. You have no idea.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the better way to do it if you got to do it. But like, I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe if they had cast just regular character actors for these roles, I'd still be annoyed because it was still kind of weird, These like kind of uppity, lazy rich people sort of in Star Wars. I don't know. Like it's just it seemed more like like Willy Wonka or something, or I don't even know how to explain it. It just didn't feel right.
Well, it felt like a spoof. It felt like we were watching some comedy movie that was like kind of spoofing Star Wars, or like maybe the way that like Galaxy Quest spoofed Star Trek, right? And you have these sort of random people in it that you wouldn't expect to see, and it takes you out. And here's the thing, right? There's just a handful of reviewers.
No. Wait, I have to interrupt there because Galaxy Quest is a great spoof. It's a great parody to me, anyway.
Yeah. I don't want to disparage it.
That's a parody done right. So I want to make that clear.
No, yeah, good point. It is a great movie. I love Galaxy Quest, but it's ultimately a comedy, right? Like this show, this like dramatic space adventure seemed more like a comedy this week around.
Yeah.
So I mean, what I was gonna say is that I follow the same kind of people on YouTube over and over again. I reference them all the time on the show. Eckhart's Ladder, one of my favorite Star Wars channels, probably my favorite. Star Wars Explained. Eckhart's Ladder has a guy who does a show with him, and his name's Corey. So he has Corey's data pad. And these are all these guys that I follow. And each one is more forgiving of Star Wars than the other. But there's a certain line that they don't cross and like, okay, this is too much. And everyone from Star Wars Explained to Corey's datapad, they all kind of said that the cameos were kind of too much. They took you out of it. They also had complaints about the scene in the beginning. They always say something positive and something negative. Then you have like guys like Star Wars Theory who just like rags on all the new Disney stuff and like agendas and things like that. Then you have, the critical drinker who just shits on all this kind of stuff. Like the people that are sort of there to get the negative reactions, right? But they had positive things to say about that very first scene, and of course they had criticisms for the very first scene too. Did you like that scene in the beginning?
I didn't mind it, certainly. I guess I didn't have any major problems with it.
Yeah.
I think it set the stage for answering the question that was proposed in the end of the last episode of who freed Moff Gideon. Clearly, somebody paid these Mandalorians to do this job to free him.
Oh,
I think it was setting that storyline up without really setting it up. I guess they're just saying like, hey, we're out here doing jobs for money. Like that's the point they're trying to get across, and they got that across. So that worked for me. I didn't mind, the alien races and the politics of it. Maybe that's just there for some color. Maybe it'll have play into something else later on.
Yes.
I don't know. I think the purpose of that scene was to say, hey, here are some Mandalorians, and they'll do anything for money.
They'll do anything for money, Brian? They're like, hey, you want a Mandalorian hand job?
You never know.
Throw in 50 more credits, I'll take my helmet off. I'm sorry, that's where my mind went immediately. I don't know what it says about me and the fact that I'm in my mom's apartment again. But, dude, you just totally brought up a point that I didn't even think about for a fucking second. So basically you're saying that, like, by having that last scene in that last episode and this scene in this episode, it's essentially saying, like, hey, these are the guys that freed Moff Gideon.
Yeah. So, I mean, what the first 4 episodes taught me is that all this weird shit that they're doing that seems out of place generally ends up mattering in some fashion.
Right.
And it was just an easy line to connect. It was literally the last thing we saw, and this is the first thing we saw this episode. So,
yeah. And see, I liked this episode, this beginning, for multiple reasons. I liked that Quarren, that's the name of the species. I know it's about a Qualish, and I think that's another type of Star Wars. I think that's like Kid Fisto is an Qualish. But it's a Quarren is the one that has like the kind of Cthulhu kind of face.
Yeah.
She was in that sort of that cylinder that had water in it. I thought that was a cool thing. Kind of reminded me of like Mass Effect or Star Trek or something.
Yeah.
And then
or back to tank.
What's that?
Or back to tank.
Yeah, or back to tank. Good point. And then I really, really liked when that Star Destroyer showed up and we saw it from behind. It kind of reminded me of, A New Hope.
Yeah.
It looked like a model. It was really great. But then when the Mandalorians show up, it's cool, but they, it just seems kind of cheesy or like a joke that these two fish people, the Mon Calamari prince and this Quarren woman, fall in love. It didn't land right.
It's certainly a cliche. It's like a Romeo and Juliet kind of cliche.
Yeah.
Or I like to bring up Saga all the time.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it. I think that's sort of the thing that I let slide. It's kind of a literary touch point,
Yeah, I guess it's kind of funny, but like
it didn't matter really. Like I think it was just some color, really.
Okay, I'm really glad that you said that because that's kind of how I feel about a lot of this stuff. I feel like so much of it kind of doesn't matter. And like that scene, that's ultimately how I felt. I understand that they're essentially establishing, here's what these other Mandalorians are doing, right? And I think it was Star Wars Explained that said that the last time that we saw Din and Bo-Katan, they were doing something where they were like uniting people or bringing them together, and then these Mandalorians were essentially pulling people apart. So they were kind of showing how they were different. I liked that, but I just once they did that scene with the romance, it was just like, oh, this is kind of cheesy. This seems like a joke. This episode was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, and she's actually directed multiple episodes of this show, and then also that really great episode of the Book of Boba Fett that had the Mandalorian in it too.
Yeah, she's definitely made some good episodes in the past.
Yeah, and I think that just her stuff looks super visually exciting. I was going to ask you though, like let's go to the planet now. Let's go to the planet that has Jack Black and Lizzo and Christopher Lloyd. So it's Plaisir 15, and honestly, man, like I knew about these fucking cameos, and I just kind of was half tuned out. Like I don't even know why they went to this planet. Like why'd they go to this planet in the first place?
Because they knew that the Mandalorian forces were basically hired to protect the planet from I guess Imperials. I'm not even sure who against necessarily. But
okay, and then
they were stationed there, and they're basically being paid for a job there, and they're
okay.
there. So she wants to go talk to the other Mandalorians that previously abandoned her because she tried to claim the throne without the Darksaber.
Okay. And then, like, the guy that's the head of the Mandalorians in this group, his name's, like, Finn Wolfhard or something.
It's Axe Foles or Axe. It's just to sound like Axe Falls or something like that, but it's like Axe Foles or something.
Yeah, Axe Wolves. Yeah. So he's got this weird-ass Star Wars name. I was fine with them, and they all looked kind of cool with their blue armor. I like all their armor matched.
Wasn't he in the episodes in season 2?
Probably.
I thought he was.
Like with Bo-Katan?
Yeah, and Sasha Banks, whose character's name I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, you're probably right. I probably need to go back. I mean, honestly, I'm going to go and finish watching Clone Wars, Rebels, because I know that I think Ren, the girl, right, Sabine Wren, she's going to come into the show, right?
I've heard of a lot of Rebels people being cast and showing up. I don't know where.
Okay, so it might be the Ahsoka.
I mean,
show.
it makes sense that she could show up here, but it also makes sense that she could show up in Ahsoka.
Okay. Well, so they go to this planet, and it's because they're trying to get this one faction of the Mandalorians, and they meet with Lizzo and Jack Black, and Jack Black is a former Imperial. I think he's like Colonel Bombardier or some shit like that.
It's something funny sounding, yeah, but that's fine to me. Like weird names in Star Wars do not bother me.
Right. And so I guess their whole thing is, I read a review on Esquire.com. This guy, Brady Langman, wrote this review, and he compared the people on Plaisir 15 to the people that are on that ship in Wall-E, where essentially like robots take care of everything. Right? You think that's a good point?
Yeah, it definitely seems like that they were inspired by something like that. People were voting to keep the robots around because they want to be lazy and not do anything. I mean, I may vote that way. Who knows? I don't have to work. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Christopher Lloyd disagrees with you, man.
He does. Yeah. He does.
Oh, look at this! Chris has commented over here.
Oh shit!
I call this the Star Wars Easter special because it barely feels like an episode, let alone episode 6 of this season.
Yeah, you think that they would try to really get something going here towards the end of the season, and I think they I actually think they did sort of have a point in this episode somewhere, but you're just so blinded by these castings that it takes you out of it and you lose interest there. The two biggest glaring points I have is besides the casting is just the overall way the episode is set up. It's like they go to this place. It's not the place they're trying to go to necessarily because they want to go talk to the Mandalorians directly, but they just have to solve this little like side quest. And I just think it was completely unnecessary for the most part, unless somehow those nano robots or something come back somewhere or important later. I don't see how much of what was shown in this little side quest really mattered. I guess you can take out of it the different viewpoints of the three characters. You have Lizzo, who was a person who was oppressed by the Empire. You have Jack Black, who was someone who was reformed from the Empire, and then you have Christopher Lloyd, who was with the Separatists and has never let go. I found that to be interesting, but it was so hard to focus on that because you're looking at Lizzo, Jack Black, and Christopher Lloyd, and I love all of them, especially Christopher Lloyd. But I honestly think maybe it's time Christopher Lloyd hangs it up because he's maybe a little bit too old.
Oh man, shitting on Doc Brown's age, and I was gonna give you a chef's kiss because you did such an awesome fucking point there. Everything you just said was perfect. Like
Except
breaking down the except for the Christopher Lloyd part, yeah. But like, that's a really, really great point about how there's like 3 different perspectives, and that kind of mirrors the different perspectives of the Mandalorians too. That's a really good point. It's so funny because every review that I've listened to, it's like that Seinfeld episode where they're like, not that there's anything wrong with that. And the thing that everyone keeps saying in these reviews are like, I love Jack Black, I love Lizzo, but I hate that they're on this show. Like that's kind of the main thing.
Yeah, it's true. Like it's nothing against them. I don't want to fault them for being Star Wars fans. I'm blaming Jon Favreau for allowing them to be cast or casting them. That's who is to blame here. Not Jack Black, not Lizzo, not Christopher Lloyd.
Right. And Chris, his point is valid. Like I did think of the Star Wars Christmas special when I was watching this because it's like there's just random fucking people instead of like B. Arthur. There's Lizzo, just showing up in this episode.
I mean, maybe that's actually a valid thing they were trying to go for. I mean, Boba Fett is in the holiday special. I mean, they've kind of extrapolated on a lot of weird things about Boba Fett because he barely did anything in the movies. To be perfectly honest.
Right.
He was a cool looking set of armor, really. He did nothing. He was kind of a bumbling idiot and he just looked cool. And that's really what the entire show is.
Yeah.
At the time. So we've said that before. So maybe that really is what happened here, is that they were trying to do an homage to the holiday special.
Yeah, I mean, the very, very first thing I saw that was spoiled was Lizzo taking a sword and knighting Grogu. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like, this is real? And that to me, it just was like, come on, they're trying to purposely jump the shark. And I was wondering, I wrote this in our notes, when you're making a property like this, there has to be someone that's sitting there with a formula that's saying, okay, you're probably going to get this amount of negative feedback, but this is going to cause people to watch the show that wouldn't normally watch the show. Like there must be some sort of risk reward thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be something to say about the Mario movie opening this week, the same day as this episode airing.
Whoa, okay. Oh shit! And he's Bowser. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of synergy there for some reason somewhere. I don't know. Maybe this was like blackmail or someone owed somebody a favor or some shit. They had to like, hey, you gotta promote the Super Mario movie in Star Wars.
Yes.
I don't know how that works. I mean, they're totally different companies. I mean, they're competing companies in the theme park space.
Oh wow. Yeah, but wasn't Shadows of the Empire, wasn't that a Nintendo 64 game?
That is very true. That was a very good game.
Yes. I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. It was really weird to fucking see Jack Black and Lizzo. I know everyone's fucking saying that. Let's talk about the Darksaber too, because one other thing, guys, that we need to talk about, we're actually reviewing this show, and then we're reviewing the trailer for Blue Beetle, and we're reviewing the trailer for Secret Invasion too. So we're going to
talk about Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 next week, so we don't want to cram too much in today.
Good call. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Yeah. So one thing that everyone keeps saying in the reviews too is that the pacing feels weird, or that there's like assumptions that they made about the show that it feels like this season is contradicting. And you and I have talked about this a lot too. And also we're dressed like fucking Mario and Luigi too, right?
Oh shit. The thing is though, I like Luigi better.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
I would actually like playing Mario as a kid. Like I would kill Mario and start as Luigi and play the game as Luigi.
Oh man, I'm learning more about you. Nice. Okay. All right. Well, with this show, right? Like, we talked about, Danny has that term that I just always fucking forget to, the fantasy
booking.
Fantasy booking, right. Okay. So fantasy booking for me, right? 101 for The Mandalorian is season 2 ends. Din Djarin has got the Darksaber. Bo-Katan says, I can't take that from you. It has to be won in combat. So as people that watch Star Wars, as people that watch movies and are used to sagas, it's like, oh man, this is going to lead up to an epic conflict. They're going to battle, and maybe one of them even might die, or something bad is going to happen. and that's how she's going to get the Darksaber, or she's not going to get the Darksaber and she's going to die. And then this episode comes around and it sort of just nullifies the fact that he got the Darksaber, just like the Book of Boba Fett nullified that Grogu went off with Luke. Like, do you feel that way, or?
Yeah, so I'm torn by this. That was one of the things that I said earlier on when we were trying to figure out what the hell the season was going to be about, what we wanted to see and what we were actually seeing.
Yeah.
I think I actually do want I do want Din Djarin and Bo-Katan to be on the same side. I do like that, but just because I like it doesn't necessarily mean it wouldn't be awesome to see them have to face off somehow.
Right.
And that those kind of things are interesting because it's like it has to happen sort of, and you don't want to see it, but it makes sense and it kind of works.
Right.
It does sort of feel like a cop out to get away. I mean, it makes sense, I suppose, and it just makes me think of what are they going to do in 2 episodes? I mean, they really got to tee up whatever this finale is going to be next week.
Yeah.
So I just don't know what it is. I hope it's just not Gideon coming back again. Like, it's got to be something bigger than that. It's really got to be Thrawn somehow. It's got to be something. How are they going to top Luke showing up from the end of last season? Like, how did they top that with the lead up that they've had so far here? Yeah.
And I don't know.
And just the fact that they decided to kind of loop in, to kind of create that loophole of transferring the Darksaber over, like in the past, instead of, and then using time to flesh out this weird side quest, as I keep referring to it. Like, why waste the time on this side quest when you have this huge story that you could do, and you just kind of brush over, sort of, It's like, oh yeah, she saved my. I was an idiot, and I, got captured, and she saved my ass with the Darksaber. So, like, it's hers. I know, like, I feel like if that happened in the real world, people are like, well, where's the footage of it? Like, I'm just going to believe you? Like, no, like, prove it,
Right. And I think, wasn't that droid there too? Maybe that would have some footage, that R5.
Oh shit, yeah, but he wasn't there right now. But yeah, he might have had some footage of it. Yeah,
maybe, yeah. I don't know. I mean, if anything, okay, I think maybe they're not going to try to top Luke. I think they realize it's like, okay, well, we can't really do bigger. Like, who's a bigger Star Wars character besides like Darth Vader? And obviously, you can't use him, right? Yeah. So they're not going to go try to do bigger or like one up that. But I feel like the thread that's going on consistently behind the scenes, or sort of like one of the themes, is that the New Republic is flawed, or there's some kind of problems with the New Republic. So maybe the end will show some sort of threat within the New Republic or something like that. Like something, I think, leaning towards like the First Order, something kind of causing a bridge between the like the Moff Gideon, Thrawn speculation stuff and the First Order stuff. I feel like that's where we're going. You don't think?
It's got. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry too. Or the other thing might be like that Bo-Katan betrays Din, and that's the way that the season ends. I know, like you're saying, you want them to be together or like them to be on the same team, but that might be like the oh shit of the end of season 3.
Yeah, but at this point, there's no conflict between them anymore, so they can't even do that. Like, I don't want them to fight, but it would make sense. It would be, interesting to see that happen. But then again, like I don't know how you have the outcome, because you can't kill Din Djarin, I don't think.
Well, unless it's sort of like really redundant, and it's like maybe they get betrayed by Axe Wolfhands or whatever the fuck his name is. Like, since if he might be working with Gideon.
Uh-oh. You're frozen, Pete.
Maybe like every fucking season they're fighting against Gideon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You did cut out there, but I think I got everything. Can you just repeat the last, 10 seconds?
Yeah. Just basically, it's like it feels like every season might end with them fighting Moff Gideon in some form. Like season 1 ended that way, season 2 ended that way, and and ultimately, like Gideon has tried to get Grogu. Maybe they get him, and then he has some other doctor, not Pershing, who can continue Pershing's work, I don't know. Like,
I still think that they've backed themselves into a corner with Baby Yoda. They
yeah,
he should have stayed off with Luke. Honestly, the show should
yeah,
have just been about the Mandalorians moving forward, and there's nothing for him to do in the show right now, I guess.
yeah,
And this episode proves it. Like seriously, like what did it, like he hung out with Lizzo. Um,
yeah, yeah,
I don't know. They've definitely stumbled a bit here. I have a feeling that maybe that they're trying to tie in the upcoming shows better, and that this show just is just filling a gap while the other shows come in, and that they're going to be a little more intertwined moving forward, or
yeah.
have some kind of like 1 to 2 episode crossover or something like that in the style of like CW Arrowverse.
Yeah,
And then season is essentially filler, just to bide time because they can't go 3 years without showing the show.
yeah. That's what I'm kind of worried about. Okay, so like our channel is called Comic Books Transformed, right? And one thing that is normally the case is that with comic books, when you have these big events like Civil War or Secret Invasion or House of M, anything like that, there's always the tie-in books, and then there's the main books, the main miniseries, right? And the main miniseries always has the oh shit stuff where like they kill people or they do some kind of crazy thing where the bad guys take over, and then there's like the filler stuff. And the filler stuff is good, but it doesn't have that kind of impact as the main series. And I'm just kind of worried that Disney Plus is just the tie-in books ultimately for Marvel and Star Wars.
This is the problem is that Mandalorian didn't start out feeling like that. Like this was event television for 2 seasons, and now it's kind of becoming a joke. In a sense. I mean, last episode was awesome. Like, don't get me wrong. And I still want to give it the benefit of the doubt because I think I clearly had problems with episodes 2 and 3 as well. And they sort of kind of redeemed it. So like the last episode kind of brought things together that I wasn't considering. I still think they may do that somehow. But still, it's like I still feel blinded by the cameos. And I strongly wonder had they not been how I would have felt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and even too, like the action scenes in this were pretty good. Like the chase scene and that city was pretty good for a TV show. And the fight with Bo-Katan and Axe, whatever the frick his name is. That was an awesome fight. Like honestly, that's how like using the jetpacks right and not be bumbling idiots.
You love to call them bumbling idiots.
Man. Oh, because they're shooting the water and shooting flames. You don't know how much that scene bothered me.
I can tell. This is like 4 weeks later. You're still talking about it.
I guess.
Yeah,
I thought it was cool. Honestly, the fight, but yes, the overall the how they got to the important stuff in this episode just seems like a weird, retcon, not a retcon, like just the stumbling through it. Yeah.
This Chris D'Onofrio says this season is bordering on feeling sequel trilogy messy, and that's concerning. I'd have to say maybe
sequel trilogy bloated is maybe a better way of saying it. I think because I do think there are some good things about the sequel trilogy, and just maybe that last. It's ultimately the resolution of that last movie is what the worst thing, honestly.
Okay, so speaking of sequel trilogy, speaking of the last movie, what if season 3 of the Mandalorian ends with the Wolf webcam? His group takes out Grogu. He takes out like Mando and their people. Like they betray them. It's this really fucking bitter thing. Maybe like the Vizsla guy gets killed or like the armorer gets killed. Real depressing betrayal. And then they take them and they bring them to the Imperials, and then you have like what looks like Snoke in a tube, and they're sort of like starting to grow Snoke. Would that be exciting for you?
The betrayal might be. The Snoke thing, not really. I want them to fill that in and flesh that out because it seems ridiculous how unimportant the movies took that. But it wouldn't. but again, I'm comparing that to seeing Luke last season. Like you said, they know they can't top it. Truly, I think the only thing that's going to redeem this is Thrawn showing up. That's really the only thing.
Okay. What if the freshly grown Snoke is played by a cameo of Pete Davidson?
I think that would be the sign that we're not going to cover season 4.
Nice. That was where my mind went. I was like, who is like sort of a topical celebrity person that you could throw in there? I went to Pete Davidson. I don't know.
It's just funny too because we're both from Staten Island and Pete Davidson from Staten Island. And
yes. Colin Yost too from Saturday Night Live. They bought a fucking ferry and made it into a club, right?
Oh my God, you're right. I heard about that. Yes.
Yes, and Colin Yost from Saturday Night Live too. This is totally off topic, but he's working on a live action Ninja Turtles movie too.
Oh, he is?
There's the cartoon Ninja Turtles movie that's coming out. We've already seen a trailer for, and then there's a live action one that he's working on too.
The Turtles are just like everywhere these days. Like they have that movie. There's like 1,000 comic crossovers and toy crossovers. They've crossed over with Stranger Things, Street Fighters, Power Rangers, Batman. Like there's like toy lines for everything. You know, it's Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Yes.
They'll just give that license to anybody.
Oh man, you fucking teed me up with a perfect transition right there too. But did you have anything else you want to say about Mandalorian?
No.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. Speaking of Cobra Kai, the actor of Cobra Kai, or one of the main actors, I don't know how to say his name, Zolo. Shit.
You ruined it. I set it up perfectly.
I know. His name is Zolo Mariduena. Zolo Mariduena.
Pretty good.
Miguel from Cobra Kai. I love him. He's my favorite character on there. He is Jaime Reyes, Blue Beetle. And that movie is coming out August 18th. Brian, are you excited about Blue Beetle?
Yeah, honestly, that's like a pretty good like stunt, almost like a stunt casting. Like not a stunt casting, fan casting. I feel like he was fan cast and it totally works. Usually fan cast things are like almost like too on the nose, but I think this works pretty well.
Yes.
And I like the casting a lot. This version of Blue Beetle, my pretty much only exposure to is Young Justice. And maybe some ancillary, DC event books. I haven't read any individual stuff there, but season 2 of Young Justice might be the best one. So that was heavily focused on Blue Beetle and the Reach and all this stuff. So I'm very excited about this. I'm intrigued by the castings and the characters that are in the movie, but at the same time, I don't know much about this Blue Beetle. I know Ted Kord better.
Okay, so what have you read with Ted Kord in it?
Oh God.
Death of Superman.
He's just always hanging out with Booster Gold, and he's just everywhere.
Yeah. Death of Superman, that's the first time I ever saw Blue Beetle as a character, was Ted Kord, Blue Beetle, getting his ass beat in by Doomsday, right?
God, and what was the I'm blanking on was it Infinite Crisis where he gets killed?
Shot. That's in Countdown to Infinite Crisis.
Countdown, yes. God, I can't remember any specific books, but I know I read him in it. I had the trading cards, man. That's all I need.
Yes, that did help in the 90s, absolutely. Yeah, obviously I knew Ted Kord before Jaime Reyes came around, but I have to say that I really thoroughly enjoyed Tony Bedard's Blue Beetle run that came out after Infinite Crisis. And so you didn't read that, right?
I don't think I've read it, no.
Okay. That's basically it's like a fresh start. You get to, meet this character, see what his life is like. They focus a lot on his family. He's living in El Paso. And that was one of the points of contention about this trailer when it came out, was that they've made him live in a fictional city like Gotham or Metropolis, whereas he's from El Paso in the comic. Did you see any of that?
I didn't see any of that. I didn't know that fact. But honestly, that doesn't bother me because DC is so has all the prominent fictional cities. Gotham is supposed to be New York, but it's not New York.
Right.
Metropolis is supposed to be I guess
Also New York.
yeah, sort of, but it's clearly not, and it's in the Midwest, so it's
Yeah.
I mean, you could go into basically every major city, every city that has a major hero's origin as a part of it is fictional. Like no one comes from an actual city in DC, so I actually kind of like that change, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because why mess with the template?
Yeah. Well, I think that some people wanted representation of like a border city, but I bet you that this city, even though it's fictional, will still be a border city too.
Yeah, it's probably going to take on all the characteristics they would have had if it was El Paso. It's just not called El Paso, and I'm totally fine with that.
Amen. Yeah, yeah. So, along with Zolo, in this movie from Cobra Kai, we also have George Lopez, who plays his uncle, Uncle Rudy Reyes. It's kind of funny. I actually know a guy in real life whose name is Rudy Reyes. And in the Tony Bedard comic, Jaime's family plays like a major role. Like his family's like really involved, like his sister and his mom and his dad. This movie looks like it's taking the exact same approach where his family's like really involved. The trailer is essentially just really him turning into Blue Beetle for the first time, and his whole family's there when it happens.
Yes. It was a pretty funny scene though, because they're thinking like it's on his face or whatever he says. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I laughed at that scene. I laughed at George Lopez saying Batman's a fascist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I definitely felt some parallels to Miss Marvel. With the heavy family involvement.
Yeah, really good point. And Miss Marvel has the bracelets in the show, and then in this, he's got the Scarab. And the Scarab, it's going to kind of be like Venom from the Venom movies, where it's like it has its own consciousness. It's on his back, obviously. I think the special effects and the way that he looks are really, really good.
Well, did you know that the suit is mostly practical?
That's fucking awesome.
I just that fact alone was enough to put me over on it.
Yeah.
I think I saw some images where just the things in the back, the
pincers,
the mandible, whatever the hell they are.
Yeah.
Those are CG, but most of the actual suit, the mask, is actual practical effect, which is fantastic.
Okay. Like it's all a game of escalation with like cosplay and stuff. People just keep getting better and better. And you have at this point where there's some cosplay that's like better than movie props and movie costumes,
I think ultimately DC knows that they don't want to repeat Green Lantern.
yeah, that's a good point. Holy shit.
The one thing I wanted to comment on was you mentioned the Venom like voice of the Scarab. I didn't like the voice that essentially sounds like Friday Iron Man.
Oh yeah.
I would much prefer the kind of the voice they used in Young Justice is like kind of perfect.
Yes.
Like I wish it was more like that and less like a computer AI thing. It was more like an alien thing, something,
I totally know what you're saying. But speaking of Injustice, you have played the game like Injustice 1 and Injustice 2?
I have.
Isn't Blue Beetle in Injustice 2?
He is in Injustice 2, yes. I don't remember anything particular about his storyline in the game, but yeah, he's a character, yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited about that. I know that, like, and this is another side tangent, but in the Superman John Kent book that like Tom Taylor's writing, the Injustice Superman shows up in that this week.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. He takes on Ultraman from like Earth 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It looks like a real interesting arc, but they show like the end of the clip is him like making a sword from his armor and doing sort of like a little sword move. I know that people have compared that to like Sentai footage, like Sentai stuff. I mean, I know you know this, but just for anybody else, it's like that's what Power Ranger footage is derived from. It's like Japanese Sentai. Yep. Did you get that vibe too?
All I could think of was the Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, okay.
So my brain went there, but I can totally see the Sentai too. But I thought that was cool. I like swords.
Is that what Cloud uses? Is that?
Yeah, it's this big. You know that image of him standing there with the huge freaking sword that no one could actually possibly hold.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think it looks awesome. It visually, I just was really impressed, like just with how good it looked. Even when he's up in space and it's kind of like Superman, it's kind of like Iron Man. That looks great. He comes down to the Earth once again. He's like kind of hovering above the ocean, and you can see his reflection. Thought that looked really great.
The little touch of him slapping the water. I don't know why I loved that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I don't know who did the visual effects for this, but it's really good.
Yeah.
Like this was actually supposed to be direct to HBO Max. Did you know that?
I had heard that, yeah, but I mean, maybe they cut the cut out Batgirl and took all their extra money and put it towards this. Who knows?
I mean, maybe it's making me wonder if Batgirl was good. I've heard that Here's the weird thing. I don't get how like these movies they're out and tons of people see them and we get a reaction, but yet we don't get the footage for some of them, or they're like so far away from their release date. Like I keep hearing that Aquaman is horrible and they're trying to bury it.
And then
nothing. Right, exactly. The only footage we've seen of Aquaman 2 is just like Jason Momoa standing by like a throne or something. And then for Batgirl, I've heard stories about how they like have destroyed all the footage. There's no footage of this movie, and a lot of people have said that the movie was bad. You know,
yeah,
I don't know if Blue Beetle is going to be bad. I actually liked Shazam: Fury of the Gods. I mean, you liked it too, for the most part. You know, we weren't like huge fans of it, but I just kind of wonder. You know, do you think this movie is going to be good?
I hope so. I mean. Yeah. I would like to have them get a win.
Yeah.
But again, it's we're and this is probably Marvel's fault. You know, Blue Beetle is not a household name. And you know, you could certainly argue that Iron Man wasn't before Iron Man, but and you could absolutely argue that the Guardians of the Galaxy weren't beforehand. But you know, there absolutely is superhero fatigue, and I think people maybe don't care about these smaller characters as much. Mm-hmm. They want to see the big things. They want to see the big guns. And they want to see the big stories and have big, you know, shocking, huge battles and stuff. They don't want to see these kind of middle ground characters in movies necessarily. So I think while I'm excited, and because I do know something about the character, I do want to see it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is another blip like Shazam was at the box office.
I know. That is what I think is going to happen. I mean, it looks awesome, and I really love Zolo, but, you know, I think it'll probably be a movie where some people are like, hey, this is pretty good, but then that's sort of the end of it. And I think that the way they're treating it is like if it was this phenomenal hit, if it made a big splash, they would, like, fold it into James Gunn's DC universe. But otherwise, I think, you know, it might just be like you might see him in the background, or he'll have like a little cameo in a future movie, and that's it.
Yeah, I think what it's going to boil down to with what moves on, what doesn't, is what contradicts whatever they want to do. And as long as it doesn't contradict anything they want to do, I think it's got a fair shot, whether it bombs or not.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you be really excited if they had a movie? It was like, you know, an Infinity War level movie, and it had like John Cena's Peacemaker. And let's say that this Blue Beetle's good, and it has this Blue Beetle, and it has, I don't know, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman and the Shazam family, and other big name people, right? Like whoever they're gonna have to be Batman. I think that'd be kind of fucking exciting.
I think they need. I think Endgame was a once in a lifetime phenomenon because it was built up over so many things. And I don't think DC has enough quality movies out there yet to get that kind of reaction yet.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, they've had some misses. They've definitely had some misses, and they've had some successes. But at the very least, with all the Marvel ones, for the most part, they're solid enough movies, maybe average at worst. Some of the DC movies are bad. So I think that hurts them. And the fact that they tried, like, this is the fact that they rushed Justice League like that. They tried to just do it too fast, and ultimately I think it hurt them. They were trying to catch up to Marvel, and I think it was a bad call. I hope they take it a little slower this time, and I think maybe they can build to something like that. You know, I feel like, DC Elseworlds were a bigger thing before Marvel's alternate universes were. I think that maybe that's changed now. I think there's a lot more focus on multiversal stuff in Marvel in the last 10, 20 years than, and DC maybe started that a little earlier.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would like I want to see movies. I like superhero movies. I like comic books. I want to see these. I want these to continue. I don't want to be bored of them.
Yes.
And I want a reason to go see them, and I hope this gives me one.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we switch over then to the competition, Marvel, and let's talk about, we're talking about superhero fatigue. Are you ready for another Marvel show?
Yeah, I guess it's been a while.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember. What was the last show we was it? It wasn't She-Hulk, was it? No.
Yeah, I think it was.
Marvel show we reviewed?
I think it was, right? What else is after She-Hulk?
Wasn't that like the summer?
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
What the hell have we been watching since then?
Like Willow? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm ready for another show. I would like them to redeem themselves too, I suppose. Those last three shows were a little too close together, I think, and there were some problems with all of them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean they have some A-list talent here. They have Samuel L. Jackson, which is always a good sign. I've always liked Colby Smulders as Maria Hill.
Yes.
I know you're not a huge fan of Emilia Clarke, but I am. So I'm happy to see her there. And I don't know, the biggest thing I think about here is that, I'm like, how are they going to do Secret Invasion if they don't have all the superheroes? Like to me, that was the draw of the comic, the original comic. Some of the heroes that you've been watching this whole time have actually been Skrulls.
Yes.
And I feel like without having any superheroes in it whatsoever, with the exception of Don Cheadle's War Machine, I feel like that's kind of taken some bite out of it. At the same time, they also kind of threw us a curveball in Captain Marvel with having some sympathetic Skrulls. It's not something you're used to seeing in Marvel comics in the past. They're always been one of those antagonistical races that always tried to conquer somebody else or was at war with somebody else, usually the Kree. And just, I mean, I guess it's certainly interesting that we have some good Skrulls and some bad Skrulls, but I do fear that the lack of superheroes in here and the lack of figuring out who's a Cylon, for lack of a better term, is going to take some bite out of this.
Yes. What was the marketing, right? It was like, who do you trust, or it was something.
Who do you trust, right?
Yeah, and that was the great thing about the Secret Invasion comic, was that for months before we even got to the event, they would have these covers or these ads where they would have these classic comic book covers, but instead of it being, a hero that you recognize like Captain America, they would have a Skrull face instead. And it would just get you excited, and you were like, oh, who's the Skrull? And I think the biggest reveal was that, spoilers for Secret Invasion, the comic, was that Spider-Woman was the Skrull queen.
And she was kind of going through like a renaissance where she was added to New Avengers. She became a really big, prominent character at the time. And that was huge because she was, that Secret Invasion was a good year and a half, 2 years after before Secret Invasion. Was it 07 or 08? I don't remember. New Avengers was 05, right? 04, 05?
Yeah.
So, it was a couple of years later. So you have years of stories with this character, in renewed prominence. And you're like, oh, shit, this entire time there was a Skrull? Like that's kind of awesome. And I think another thing that they're missing here is a tie-in with Secret Avengers. I think that Nick Fury assembles a team of people with the original Secret Avengers, of people that he knows he can trust, that they're not people he thinks the Skrulls would have attempted to impersonate. Their whole goal is to kind of take over prominent places in politics and the superhero community and everything, so they can kind of take over the world, sort of. Yeah. So Nick Fury had this team, and he created this team of these relatively unknown characters, and that was kind of part of it. And I think that's going to be missing out of this too.
Yeah, right. Because that's where you get like Quake,
Quake, yeah,
right?
that's where Quake was created.
Yeah, and then you had like the guy who's like I think it's Phobos. He's like the son of Ares. They haven't even introduced Ares in this in the MCU yet, right? I mean, Quake is a character that's on Agents of Shield, but I think they're making it like that doesn't count,
Yeah, I'm
right?
pretty sure they've erased that could connect.
Yeah, but you bring up a good point. Like all the Secret Invasion stuff and then Secret Warriors, that's like big level stuff. That's like big, massive superhero event stuff. And this is sort of like a spy thriller kind of setting. It looks like kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers meets like some sort of like 70s spy thriller. They always like when they would talk about the Winter Soldier movie, they're like, this is a 70s spy thriller, like 10 Days of the Condor or the Jackal or whatever the fuck, right? And it's funny because I love comics that feel like that, but I haven't actually watched too many of these 70s spy thrillers like the Manchurian Candidate and things like that.
Same here.
What's that?
Is that same here?
Yeah, and I love things like The Americans and also Homeland. So I feel like I'll like this. And one thing I want to point out too is that the showrunner is Kyle Bradstreet. Or I might have went to write Broadstreet. I don't know. I wrote Bradstreet. So it's either Kyle Broadstreet or Bradstreet. Whatever his name is, he was a writer and an executive producer on Mr. Robot. And that was a phenomenal show. I wouldn't say it's like as good as Breaking Bad or like Fargo, but I would say that it's like one of those shows that feels different and they were with it. That makes me excited for Secret Invasion. I'm also very happy that it's not just some fucking writer from Rick and Morty.
Yeah, it's funny how since the news of Justin Roiland's kind of abuse allegations and all that, kind of everyone's got turned on Rick and Morty people.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I haven't watched like the last 2 seasons of Rick and Morty, I think, but I always laugh. I think it's real funny. It makes me laugh out loud. But I just think that they put all their eggs in the Rick and Morty basket, and I think it's produced some kind of weird shows. It's taken the MCU in a weird direction.
Yeah,
and that's weird because I don't think as on our channel we've even discussed Kang and what's the actor's name again?
Jonathan Majors. Yeah,
his controversy too, right?
Yeah, that's going to be real interesting.
Yeah. What they end up doing with that too.
They've obviously done some recasts before.
Yeah.
Probably the one most prominent was Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle.
Yeah.
But that's arguably a side character. This is like a major antagonist that still has things that have been filmed coming out. Mainly Loki season 2.
Yeah.
And the whole, the last thing we saw was a giant room filled with versions of his character that look exactly like him. So it's gonna when it's somebody different, it's gonna be like extra weird.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's funny, right? Because we're talking about these actors. You mentioned how like, oh well, they have top level talent. They have Samuel L. Jackson and they have Emilia Clarke, right? There's also Olivia Colman, who like comic book fans might not be as familiar with her, but she fucking at the Oscars, the Golden Globes, she like cleans it up, man. She like wins things left and right. She's this like real renowned actress. Don Cheadle as War Machine, he's just a fantastic actor. And then I'm a big Ben Mendelsohn fan too. What about you?
I like Ben Mendelsohn a lot too. Yeah, I mean he's made plenty of appearances in, on both sides of the Disney fence here.
Right, like Star Wars and this. Yeah. So like, I think like Everett K. Ross is going to be in it too. Like, what's his face again?
Well, I'm actually curious how he's going to be in there because the last time we saw him is he was getting arrested.
Yeah. I think that Fury's going to break him out because in the description they say that he recruits Ross, Maria Hill, and Talos. So like that's his team. And then when it comes to Olivia Colman, she's playing a character named Sonia Falsworth, and some people speculate that she's going to be like a gender swapped Union Jack.
Interesting. Okay.
Do you know who that character is?
I very, very vaguely, but I'm aware of the name, and but I guess that's kind of it.
Yeah, Union Jack is like one of those characters from like the World War II time, and he's kind of like a British Captain America, sort of,
Yeah.
and he's like from that time period. So it'd be weird for her to be like a character like that, but I don't know. It's interesting. She's sort of an antagonistic character to Samuel Jackson's Nick Fury, so I guess we'll see.
I mean, maybe she's the Skrull.
Right. And there'll be tons of Skrulls. One of the main Skrulls that they listed in here, and this might be a little bit of a spoiler here, is where did I have his name?
Gravik?
I'm sorry. What's that?
Gravik?
Gravik. Yeah, he's like a rebel Skrull. He's against.
He seems to be the leader of the Skrull resistance that's opposing. I mean, I guess I don't know who he's opposing. I don't know if Talos is actually a leader in the Skrulls or not. He's just Nick Fury's friend. It's and we didn't even talk about the what the show's about, really. It seems to be that the Skrulls are just dissatisfied with the efforts of Nick Fury and his team trying to find them a new place to live.
Yeah,
and they're going to take action and try to take over the Earth. So I guess that's the connection that they're trying to make to the comics, without having the heroes there. So we have kind of a, disgruntled faction of this race that's their home planet was destroyed by Thanos. I believe it was destroyed by Thanos, right?
Oh shit! I don't even know.
I mean that's what propels the Secret Invasion in the comics, the original one, is that their home planet was destroyed. But I think they why were they the Kree destroyed? What happened to Captain Marvel? We have to review it. We didn't redo it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we covered Captain Marvel for this channel, right?
We did.
Yeah, so perfect. We can do that. I think that maybe the Kree wiped them out. I think it might have been the Kree and not Thanos.
Maybe.
Because it wasn't like there was half. Because Thanos does that thing where it's like, oh, I got to kill half the people. So they didn't kill half the Skrulls. Like almost all of them got destroyed.
No, I think their planet got destroyed. So I think that was the whole thing.
Right, because in Captain Marvel, the Kree have these weapons that like fly down and just nuke planets.
Yeah, maybe that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's one of the things I like though. There's another channel I'm going to give a shout out to, Nando V Movies. Nando, he was pointing out how it's kind of cool that it's not just this like evil race where every single Skrull is evil. It's like this is a faction. I like that. I like
it too. Yeah, I think it'll add some depth to it. Like I said, like the thing I expect out of this is hidden superheroes. Like who is the Cylon? That's essentially what was interesting about Secret Invasion. But they can't do that, so they're giving us something that maybe could also be interesting, but won't be the same.
Right, and one of the things that the Secret Invasion comic did was it sort of like retconned or like fixed a couple of flaws. Most notably, they killed off the character of Mockingbird.
Yep.
Mockingbird, Bullseye, Hawkeye's wife or ex-wife, and then they brought her back and said that the one that died was a Skrull. So I like things like that, and maybe they might do something like that for a Marvel movie where it's like, oh, this character was dead, but he actually was a Skrull,
I would love to see something like that, but I think because we're talking about real-world actors and people not wanting to give away 6 months of their lives to film these things, I don't think we're really going to see that.
Yeah,
fortunately, I think that's just a pitfall of an adaptation like this.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I mean, they haven't really referenced any other characters besides the people that we've talked about too. And I was just trying to think of like who they would actually try to bring back, from the past. So, or who they did dirty. I'm not sure.
I feel like everyone that's gone is actors that wanted to leave.
Yeah. Well, so on our scale
of
like,
maybe, I don't know.
Or what?
Quicksilver, maybe he was like the only one that was kind of like done dirty, I guess.
Oh yeah, that would be kind of cool if they brought him back. But out of like Uatu, Daredevil, or Happy Hogan, how do you feel about the show after watching this trailer? What's what? I don't remember anymore. Uatu's like you got to see it. Daredevil's like you're okay.
I'm Happy Hogan. I'm in the middle, I guess.
Yeah. I'm kind of Happy Hogan, and I'm going to use that as our way to transition because we're right at the 1 hour mark. So I'll say That's good. If you have any more thoughts, we can continue that next week with our discussion of Across the Spider-Verse. But I hope you guys can all like and subscribe and join me and Brian next week where we talk some more Mandalorian and Across the